Hey headphone people, MrAyrit here, back again with another little more obscure headphone review. Today we are looking at the blue Lola, I think is what it's called. And just kind of randomly picked this one up on a trade, and I'd seen them before. And if you've ever seen like a blue product, like their microphones and things, they all have kind of a really interesting design and style to them. And I had heard some decent things about this headphone, although not a lot. So we're gonna try to like break this thing down and talk a little bit about the build of it and talk a little bit about the sound of it. And I do feel like it kind of misses the mark, but maybe not in the way that you would expect. So let's kind of talk about this headphone and some of its interesting design choices, and then we'll get into the sound and kind of what I think about that. All right. So before we look at the headphones here, just real quick, right? I don't have the original package because, like I said, I got them used on a trade, right? But I don't have the original box, but they did come with this case, which has like a magnetic flap, and it's a heavy case, and there's a little pocket in there for the cable storage and stuff like that. So again, I don't really use things like this a whole lot, but it's as far as like headphone bags go, it's one of the nicer ones that I've encountered. The cable is one of my gripes with the design of this headphone. One, you can see that it's kind of like it's really long, but it's also really thin and tangly, and just it isn't nice to interact with. And that could be forgiven, except look at the connector. So the connector is a 2.5 millimeter that goes into the headphone, but look at how deep that thing is, right? So there is probably just no way that you're gonna get an aftermarket cable for this unless Blue sells one, and I don't know if they do or don't, but I wish that it came with another cable, or maybe it did originally, but if I had a cable that was like half this long, that would be much better, because they tout these as like a portable use headphone, right? Like they're talking about driving it off of a portable device, and we'll talk more about that here in a moment. But just so you can see how this kind of plugs in here, is it goes way into that jack, and you can see there's a little switch right here, right? We'll talk about that here in a moment as well. Now the other end of the headphone, again, is kind of an interesting choice because it's a 3.5, but then the 1/4-inch adapter is like this big sleeve that kind of goes on top of it to the point where like it looks like just the actual cable. So I actually really like this, except I've wandered around, and sometimes it's been like a long time since I've used it, and I'm like, where is my 3.5 millimeter adapter? And I think in my head I can't remember, and then I'm like, oh, it's actually a 3.5 with a 1/4-inch adapter. So cool design there. And this can be used, the way they designed this, like this can be used with other adapters too, in case you lose this one, which is nice. But yeah, so probably talking too long about the cable here, but the bummer is just that you can't use an aftermarket cable, and that's really what it comes down to. So let's talk about, let me just show you this plug again here, and then we can talk about the design of the headphone and why this switches. So again, this goes in here, and then this is actually a switch, because I don't know if you can see, we'll see if we can get in there. It says on, off, and then on plus. And what that means is this actually has kind of like one of the big selling features that they have on this headphone is that it has a built-in amplifier, which is kind of cool and interesting, right? And then they've got like the amp, so you can have it off, you can have it on, and then you can have it on plus, which is like a bass boost, right? And we'll get into more of the sound here in a minute. And then you can see to charge it, they've just got one of these little like kind of typical old school mini USB or micro USB. I can't ever remember which one it is, right? So the build of this thing is obviously like what stands out about it, in addition to that amp choice. And it is all metal, and I really like the design of it. I think it's really cool. At the same time though, just the actual like use of it is not great. So you can see it's kind of got like this tension system in it, and then it's got like a lot of like different moving parts and things like that on it, to where like these things kind of like swivel around, and you can get it, like, again, I have a pretty small head and I can get it like on here so it fits good, and you know, it looks intense, right? The problem is it just, even though it's not, I wouldn't call it like uncomfortable, but it's like, it just doesn't feel nice either. It feels like you have like a weird contraption on your head when you're using it. I mean, I can get a good fit, and like I said, it's not like terribly uncomfortable, and I think most people would be able to get it to the point where they like have it and it's okay. But again, it's just, it seems more complicated than it needs to be, right? It kind of is reminiscent, if you look at it, of like a, you know, like the DCA stuff, but those are infinitely more simple and comfortable than this is, right? I do kind of like that it just like sits. So, I mean, you can't see that really well, but just like the way it's set up is like, you don't need a headphone stand. I'll just cut to some B-roll of this, but it can just like sit on a desk or something, which I think is kind of cool. You know, padding on top, it looks nice and cushy, but there's actually like, it's pretty stiff really. And I never got these wings. Like, the person that traded to me said that he replaced this stuff, and I never got these wings to like stay the way they should stay on here. So it doesn't, again, in like practice, it just doesn't work very good. Now this up here, if you can read that, it's like a tensioning system where you can increase and decrease the amount of tension on the headphone, and make it kind of lighter, clamp and stuff, or move easier. So I don't know, I guess the idea is maybe that you loosen it up and then kind of get it where you want it, and then kind of lock it into place maybe. I don't know. Again, it just seems more complicated than it needs to be. I wish it was just like DCA style, right? Where it was just, you know, I like these style cup, but I wish this was just like a regular suspension strap system on the top. And I think that would solve like a lot of the problems with this headphone, honestly. That and having a replaceable cable. All right, we probably beat the build of this thing to death at this point. Again, unique. But ultimately, like, one of the big downsides of this headphone is, I would say the build of it is, not that it's a poor build, but just it's weird and overly complicated and not as comfy and simple as it could have been. Sound. Now this is where it gets interesting, because I actually think this thing sounds like pretty good. Its sound signature is definitely a more relaxed sound signature, right? So and let me say too that, like, I'm gonna give you mainly my impressions of it with its built-in amplifier, because while it sounds okay without the built-in amplifier on, it also, I think, loses any like real special characteristics. So it's pretty flat and boring when the amplifier's off, but when you turn the amplifier on, and I honestly preferred it the amplifier plus with like kind of the bass boost, it just becomes this warm, wide, you know, the bass is a little loose, but it's quite pleasant, and it you know, the middle and upper frequencies actually have a surprising amount of detail for, again, this is $150 is what this retails for, and you could probably pick one up for like $100, I bet, at this point. And I think at that price, like, the sound you're getting out of this is quite compelling and enjoyable if you're looking for a warmer, more relaxed listen that still retains a good amount of detail. And you know what's kind of cool about this is, because it's got the built-in amplifier, you can run it really easily off of, you know, just like an Apple dongle or something along those lines, and it sounds really good. So it sounds, if you put a clean source in this and then use the built-in amplifier with the bass boost stuff, like, you get I think that's a good combination. And again, that's a pretty cheap setup. That's a pretty cheap setup if you're looking for like a closed back headphone to use. Let's see here, just a couple more notes here. You know, you've got this little USB port here, and I feel like maybe one of the other ways that they missed the mark on this headphone is not just including some sort of a basic DAC in it as well. like I said, I've been using it with the Apple dongle, and that's fine, but that means like if they would have just used like some sort of just cheap built-in DAC that you could just plug this straight in like through USB to a device, I think that would have been cool as well. That being said, it's just for charging. You know, the battery life on these is pretty good though, and it does seem to do a good job of just automatically shutting off if you leave like the amplifier on in this. So I think it does a good job with that. And you know, maybe you have to charge it, you know, overnight if you use it all day long. But if you're just using it like a couple hours or an hour or two here and there, like I went a long time before I had to charge this thing again. So pretty good in that regard. Okay, sorry, child issues that I had to deal with. I kind of lost my train of thought here, but let me just go ahead and kind of summarize this. So again, sound-wise, I really like it. One of my favorites under $200 for closed-back, for sure. For sound, now, do I recommend it? Gosh, I just can't really recommend it, honestly. Like, if you want to give them a shot, I'd say go ahead and give them a shot. If you're looking for, you know, a closed-back, maybe if you don't have, you know, a super powerful amp yet, type of stuff, and if you're looking for that like warm, kind of bassy, relaxed sound, I mean, I do like them, but just because of the build, I can't imagine them being for like a lot of people. And what a sad thing that is, right? Like they try to make it cool and built well and interesting and things like that, but ultimately that leads to its demise. Whereas if they would have just focused on like simplicity and sound, they probably could have shaved money off of the price, and people could have been picking up like a closed back headphone that was really decent for like $100, that would have worked for a lot of people. So I think it's an interesting attempt at a headphone, but ultimately it just because of the weird build, I just don't know that it's for most people. I actually am going to keep it around for a little while, honestly, and see just if I use it or not. I've actually had it for quite a while, and it's kind of been on the back burner, but coming back to it, I realized how much I enjoy the sound of this headphone. So I'm gonna keep it around and see if I use it a little bit more, and yeah, we'll see where that goes. But all in all, like, yeah, Blue, if you're watching this, make this headphone again and just make it simple, like a simple suspension headband setup, and make a replaceable cable for it, and you're gonna have a winner, guaranteed, I think, for you. So yeah, interesting headphone, but ultimately, like, the build is weird. I do like this, just so you know, like other things that I have on hand that I think I like the sound signature better of. I got Turtle Beach Recons, which I'll review here shortly, and I'll compare that against the MMX 300 first gen Bayers. Like this better than those. The Sivga 021s or 0021s, the Phoenix. I did that review a little while back, which I like that headphone, but I actually think I like these better sound wise. But those are like a totally different build and things like that though. But yeah, I actually have like a lot of closed back headphones that I've kind of been putting off reviewing that are like on the cheaper side, like $100 and less. So, you know, if those kind of reviews interest you, consider subscribing to the channel, sticking around, and, you know, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.